Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to begin our service with a short meditation. The meditation can be found on page 126. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no service. But I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illuminate all of us and to bring that vision to life. Thank you. I'd like to invite now Shira Kraus up to light our Shabbat candles. The blessing can be found on page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehavik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Shira. We'll continue on page 130.
Lehu neranena l'Adonai nariya litzor hishenu nekadma fanav betoda bizmirot narielo.
Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. I'd like to invite now up our mystic in residence, Shira Kraus, for a very special Lecha Dodi.
Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishmianu el hameyuchad Adonai echad ushmo echad L'shem u'tiferet ve'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך ההפכה. רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. התנערי מעפר קומי, לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי. על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי, קרבה אל נפשי נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי. בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונבנתה עיר על תילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשיסה שושייך, ורחקו כל מבלייך. יסיס עלייך אלוהיך, כי ימסוס חתן על כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תריצי. על יד איש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי ידדי ידדי, פני שבת nekabela. We rise. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela.
Thank you, Shira. Thank you. That sets us in a very mystical awareness for our service. Thank you. We'll continue on page 140.
Tzadikat amar yifra, geres bavanon iskei, shitulim bevet Adonai, behazrot Eloheinu yafrihu, od yanun beseva, deshenim verananim iyu, lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatapo.
We continue on page 141. Adonai is sovereign. God is robed in grandeur. Adonai is robed. God is girded with strength. The world stands firm. It cannot be shaken. Your throne stands firm. From eternity, you have existed. The ocean's sounds, Adonai, the ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding above the thunder of the mighty waters. More majestic than the breakers of the sea is Adonai, majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all times. We'll continue on page 142 with Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlahim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bohem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlahim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barhuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zaytem leShalom, Malahe HaShalom, Malahe Elyon. Melech Malahe Hamlahim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
As we transition out of the Kabbalat Shabbat section of our service, we will continue with the Hatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah V'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uvyomechon Ufayedechol Beit Yisrael Bahagala Uvizman Kariv V'yameru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Olmei Elmaya Yitbarach Vayishtabach Vayitpa'ar Vayitраman Vayitnaseh Vayithadar Vayithalev Vayithalal Shamei Kudasha Brechu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran mi'alma V'emeru Amen. Now turn to page 146 of the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. We continue on page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide. Your breath glides the sails of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and earth, you guide the current of the day into night. As heaven spans into infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Continue on page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. We'll continue with the Shema on page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. We will continue with the V'ahavta on page 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha chayom alevavecha v'shinantan levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvletecha vaderech ushachbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leod al yadecha v'hayu latotafot bein einecha uktavtam al mizuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kiddoshim lelechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem mi'eretz Mitzrayim liot lechem lelochim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. Continue on page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to the promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Continue on page 154 with the translation for Mi Chamocha. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with Vishamru on page 162.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei Yisrael uti leolam, uti leolam, uti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. K'sheshit yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Thank you. We'll continue with the Amidah on page 164. Adonai sefa tivtach ufi agita hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Hasdei Avot Ve'imachot, Umevi Goel Ifnei V'nechem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Li'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atah Rav Lechoshia. Mashiv Haruach Umarid Hagashem, Mekakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Virofeh Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'agivurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hametim. Atah kadosh v'shim hakadosh ukoshim b'chol yom yahallelu rasela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, our holy God. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue with the Amidah silently until page 179 and page 180. We'll now continue on page 180 with Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'meru, amen.
Thank you. We will now transition to our Torah service on page 362. I'd like to invite up to the Torah Ark Jonathan Falco, Yonatan Ben Yehudit.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, ve'ein k'ma'asecha. Malchutecha malchut, kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz lamo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, adon olamim.
Now we will transition to Ki Mitzion.
Ki mitzion teisei Torah, Ki mitzion teisei Torah, udavar Adonai miYerushalayim.
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Blessed is God who in holiness gave the Torah to the people Israel. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, Uneromima Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki hol b'shamayim uvaretz ki hol b'shamayim uvaretz Lecha Adonai hamlacha v'hamenaseh lechol erosh. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, V'yishtachavu, V'yishtachavu, Lehar Kodsho, Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Our Torah reading for today comes from Exodus 35, verses 30 through 34.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Moshe el bnei Yisrael, Re'u, Kara Adonai, B'Shem, B'Tzalel, Ben Uri, Ben Hur, Lemate Yehuda, V'Yimale Oto, Ruach Elohim, B'Chuchma, U'Vitvuna Uvda'at, Uv'Chol Melacha, Ulach Shov, Machshavot, La'asot, B'Zahav Uva'Kesef, Uvanchoshet, Uvacharoshet Even, Lemalot, Uvacharoshet Eitz, La'asot, B'Chol Melacha, Machshavot, Ulhorot, Natan Belibo, Hu, Va'aholiav ben Achisamach, Lemate Dan. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'Torah.
Amen. We will now continue with the Mishaberach on page 371.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor Habraha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mechor habraha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We now continue with Hagba and Galila, with Shmuel being our Hagba, our Magbiel.
V'zot ha'Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael api Adonai b'yad Moshe.
We continue with our service as we return the Torah to the Ark. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lechol chasidav, Livnei Yisrael Am Kirovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem Torati al tazovu. Eitz chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva. Kaddish, Kaddish Yameinu, Kaddish Yameinu kekedem. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. In this week's Torah portion, we read how the people of Israel were called upon to build the tabernacle and the ark that will house the 10 Commandments. The antechambers of the tabernacle are also described as a sanctuary for God to dwell in. The construction includes specifications calling for various exotic materials, including gems, carved woods, luxurious fabrics, artistically woven curtains, and precious metals such as gold, silver, and copper. Tasked to our forebearers, the dimensions and measurements for construction are exact and specific. This is the first finite architectural description for our people and the first description of artistry, wood carving, gilding, and work with precious materials. In Exodus 36 of this week's Torah portion, we read of the chief artisan for these projects, Bezalel, and his artistic assistants. This week, our Torah portion is the bedrock for Jewish expressions in art, woodworking, architecture, and design. It may surprise many, but there is a deep-running tradition of our people with art, woodworking, architecture, and design. The verses from this week's Torah portion encapsulate the first iteration of these sciences, but it would not be our last. Eventually, the synagogues of ancient Israel would mirror the same thought that went into this week's Torah portion. Ancient synagogues, such as Dura Europos of Syria, during the Roman period were vibrant, full of life, and included zodiac symbols and human forms. Diaspora Judaism would eventually bear some awe-inspiring, beautiful synagogues, including the glorious wooden synagogues of Poland. Tragically, during the Holocaust, all of the wooden synagogues and arks were destroyed in Europe by 1945. Last year, I set upon the monumental task of rebuilding one of the great wooden arks from one of the perished wooden synagogues of Europe and embarked upon the Opening the Ark project of Cincinnati. The Ark, now rebuilt and standing proudly inside of the Skirball Museum of Cincinnati, was one of the jewels of world Jewry. Towering and coated in vibrant colors, it stood in Cedra, Poland, but it was destroyed by the Nazis in 1942. With Polish, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, and Russian influences, it testified to a Jewish dialogue and to a Jewish mastery of art, artistry, and carpentry. Included on the ark are the motifs of this week's Torah portion, and the ark includes the 10 Commandments, the cherubim, gildings of precious metals, and an assumed figure of Moses. Embroidered in Hebrew above the opening that houses the Torah scrolls are the words from Exodus 25, verse 17, and translated read, "And you shall make an ark cover of pure gold. Ve'asita koperet zahav tahor." The ark from Poland has now been restored to the beautiful piece of art that it once was. The story of the ark's rebirth is fascinating, yet it is the story of a community of people that is most touching. The project was not financed, built, or envisioned by one person. There was aboard a team of volunteers and close to a dozen organizations that pitched into the project. Nevertheless, the details of the Opening the Ark project mirror the text in our Torah reading of this week. Imagine again the text from our Torah reading. Two aspects brought the ark and the tabernacle into tangible existence. First, material support was needed to drive the projects. The people of Israel donated in abundance the materials needed to construct the ark and the tabernacle, the Mishkan. They brought gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and red dyed wool, goat hair, spun linen, animal skins, wood, olive oil, and herbs, even precious stones for its construction. Second, there was community and leader-driven support for the projects. A team of priests serviced the ark and the tabernacle, the Mishkan, while another team of artisans would convene tasked with creating the blueprints for a community and of the projects. They participated in the monumental effort of our people to build the physical spaces of the ark and the tabernacle in harmony and tandem with one another. The project of creating the ark and the tabernacle was a monumental communal task for antiquity. It begot a sort of holy union between leadership teams and the community. Without the support of both, there would be no artisans, no gold, no silver, and no priests. There would be no ark and no tabernacle, no Mishkan for our people. So too, the Opening the Ark project in Cincinnati necessitated a community leadership-centered holy union. Financial support was provided by several national and local Jewish and non-affiliated organizations, while the team of volunteers and skilled laborers spent day and night working on the various stages of the ark's construction. For the community leadership team, the excitement was not merely generated around rebuilding a perished item. It was about a community of creating personal relationships. Everyone involved with the project felt an emotional bond, not chiefly to the ark, but to each other. When I reached out to donors, I asked how they were managing with COVID-19. When they spoke with myself, they wanted to know how my family was doing. When Jonathan, who worked with me every day throughout the summer months, needed help moving into his new apartment, I set the time aside to help him with the moving process. Relationships were formed and bonded during the project. A community grew resting upon the same empathy, compassion, and dedication that pulled ourselves to rebuild a lost treasure for our people. Today, we sit apart from one another. Families have been separated, and many have not been able to see loved ones for quite some time. However, what is it that has brought us here together today? Is it merely the ark? Is it a sanctuary? Is it a physical space? Clearly, as important as physical spaces are, our connections extend beyond the physical. The building of our community has drawn us to be with one another here today. It is the call of the love, unity, community, God, and spirituality of Judaism that glue us together. These qualities are needed today more than ever before. The experience of living under COVID-19 for a year now has accelerated many trends. We now, more than ever before, live in a world where we have developed speed, but we have quite literally shut ourselves in. Technology and the internet that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us often cynical, our cleverness often hard and unkind. We think too much today and feel too little. More than technology, now we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life may be violent and much may be lost. Zoom and YouTube has brought us closer here together today. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in humanity. It cries out for universal friendship, for the unity in us all. Even as we sit in different states, we are brought together in one room here today. Over the past year, it is easy to imagine that in the absence of human touch, many have been driven to brutality. Cruelty, violence, and desperation may thrive under such conditions. Poor leadership and greed can easily monopolize our desperation. It may manipulate and delegate us and turn our world into a power keg of violence. Nevertheless, we must remember we are not machines. We have the love of humanity and a community of good faith in our hearts. Building an ark and a tabernacle are holy not because of the physical space created, but because of the connections we build, of empathy, care, and devotion. Exodus 25, verse 17 states, "Ve'asita koperet zahav tahor," translated into English, "and you shall make an ark cover of pure gold." But as we've found out in our history, material wealth, arks, tabernacles, and so on, all rise up, but they are merely physical and not eternal. What may endure, however, is our faith, which raises not just buildings, but a community of love, compassion, and concern. These values have transcended and will continue to transcend the generations of our people and be our ark for future generations. L'dor vador. Can you hear us on? We now turn to page 586 for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol lateit gidula liotzer breshit shalo atzane kuyel aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot cha'adama shalo samcha kenu kachem v'gor aleinu k'chol chamonam va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei chamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Thus it has been said, Adonai will be sovereign over all the earth. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name will be one. Before we move into the Mourner's Kaddish, there is a reading that is very pertinent to today's service. The reading can be found on page 596. We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and into many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed in memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, still their blood cries out from the earth. And so many at Dachau, at Buchenwald, at Baba Yar. What can we say? What can we do? How bear the unbearable or accept what life has brought to our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of time with the callous slaughter of the innocent cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all but many, and surely many died with faith in God, in life, and in the goodness that even flames could not destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense that life and the soul endure beyond the body's death. They have left their lives to us. Let a million prayers rise whenever Jews worship. Let a million candles glow against the darkness of these unfinished lives. The Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma dira chirutei, V'yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon uvyomechon, Uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala ubizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shemei dekudasha brechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru amen. With the memory of Sidra Poland engraved into our minds, I would like to read a translation of a Yiddish song once sung in the Vilna ghetto, written by Leib Rosenthal. It is entitled from Yiddish, Mir leben ewig, we will endure. We will endure. The world may smolder, but we will endure. Despite our foes who crave our destruction, we will endure. We will endure. We are an eternal people. No matter how wretched the season, the hour, we will endure. Our legacy with this ark is not one of destruction, but of rebirth, of endurance, of our survival and the survival of the eternal Jewish people. We will endure. At At this point, I'd like to invite Daniela up to conclude our service with Hine Matov on page 644.
Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wishing everyone a good Shabbos. Thank you.